Shabbat shalom, everyone. Well, the order's a little different of how we do things, but we're going to get started. Hey, Shabbat shalom to everyone out there as well. Don't like the word wish that much, but wish you were here. I guess you are here. Welcome. Hallelujah. Some of the people I meet from time to time really bless me. I just want to say that to you all who aren't here because I remember one of the sisters, I think she's from Pennsylvania somewhere. She told me that legend really helped her, and I spoke to someone else. I speak to people all the time, and I just want to let you all know that we are all one body, and there is not any distance that can make that different. You could be orbiting the moon if that were possible, and you still be our brothers if you confess Messiah. Hallelujah. So today's message is titled, Born Like This or That. And I know people have got some preconceptions about where Ephraim's going with this. They're like, well, but, you know, when Arthur was talking earlier today, he mentioned some things that I felt like were the Father's way of sort of starting to plow the ground a little bit and break it up so that some of these seeds might actually have a better chance of bringing forth fruit in due season. You know, it's not a light thing to stand up here and proclaim the word of Elohim. I just want to throw that out there. This is one of maybe the toughest job. I don't know, parenting and husband is kind of tough too sometimes. But one of the toughest jobs that I love. And I love it because it always causes me to look at me honestly. It always causes me to check myself. And this is what Arthur was talking about a little bit earlier. And so, you know, I want to lay that out there for everyone else as well, because the benefit of me teaching is that the Father does something in me and deals with me and wrestles through my issues and then gives me an opportunity to step outside of all of my prejudices and all of my things that I think and to invite other people into that blessing. So I got blessed with this word. I got blessed with these words, and as usual, we don't have time to go through everything that compasses it. But we're going to do a good and thorough job of walking through the subject and what the scriptures say about, and how the scriptures help us to address this concept of, I was born like that. It's a tagline for certain elements of people, right? Some of you have heard it. You know, why you do what you do. I was born like that. Right? I mean, haven't we all heard that before? And we've heard it in certain areas and heard it in certain other areas. But the fact of the matter is that we've all heard it before. We may have even said it in a different way. Say, well, you know, this is how we always did it. You ever talk to somebody about the Sabbath and they say, well, my grandma was a Baptist and my father was a Baptist, and my people, we all Baptists. We got our names on the chair, right? And their reason for throwing this out there is to say to you, are you kidding me? We're not going to go do something different. So I didn't expect this, but here we go. So I was talking to a brother last night, and we were talking about, he's probably watching, Shalom, Mark. We were talking about this whole idea of how do you understand how Elohim does the thing over here when the thing is clearly not right. For instance, how did he show up in the Sunday church when they don't honor the Sabbath? Anybody ever thought about that? Now, there's two ways to look at this. One way is to say that ain't him, right? It's the devil. But some of you all out there are wise enough to know that wasn't the devil. And if it was the devil, then that same devil wandered you into the Sabbath. Can anybody understand what I'm saying? Right? But at the same time, the Spirit of Elohim has encouraged us to walk out of that into this. And it's kind of perplexing if you try to get your head around it. And I gave him this example. I says, so in my natural mind, suppose, I had like a bunch of food to feed people. And people were starving, they were hungry. And I says, well, you need to meet me at 123 Anywhere Street, USA, and I will give you the food. I'll have it there for you. But one of my trucks crashed up the street from 123. And the food spilled out and people started eating it over there, right? And they thought, well, this is the place. They sort of changed the place and start eating it over there. But me and my natural mind would be like, when that runs out, I'm not starting a new thing over there. And I'm not sure if you can understand the analogy here, but what I was trying to say to him is that, well, then why doesn't Elohim say, if y'all don't come to the Sabbath, you're none of mine, and I'm not giving you my spirit. And I said to him, do you realize that his mercy does endure forever? And that nobody's counseling him. We're not able to say to him, this is how you should do it, Father. Oh, sometimes I feel like saying that. But it doesn't usually work out until I submit myself. There's a couple of times in the scriptures where it might have appeared it worked out. Remember when the Israelites were wanting some quails? Oh, no, they wanted meat. They didn't want quails. And the Father gave them some. Finally, didn't work out so well. And so the whole point of this pre-message is that we must begin to agree wholeheartedly with his will, even though we don't know all the time what it is. This is a strange thing for you operating in the natural only. Because it's like, well, I don't know what I'm agreeing to. When I was taught, don't you sign that contract till you read it thoroughly. They even told me, well, you got 3 days, 72 hours to check it out, and you can come back and say, and so I'm standing in front of somebody for a house or a car or for whatever it was, right? And they're telling me I got 72 hours, just sign it. And my brain, this is all natural. My brain is like, I'm not just signing it. So what, I got 72 hours to go ahead and study it and let my lawyer look at it. I'm not signing it till I look it over. But with Yahuwah, we have no idea where he's leading us. And yet he's asked us to agree with him. And just in case anybody's wondering, he's worthy of that kind of trust. See, because over and over in the scriptures, and probably over and over in our lives, we found that we did some measure of that, and we saw the benefit of it. And that's why, when someone says to me, an atheist or whatever, it's just blind faith. You don't know. I says, well, you weren't there when the primordial soup started either. So that's blind faith. Were you there at the Big Bang? So don't give me the blind faith deal. At the end of your trail and at the end of my trail, we both have to decide, do we believe something? And I choose to believe that Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, has created all things. And what measures and mechanisms he used to do it, I don't know. I don't know them all. I see what's in the scripture. But the whole point is that we have to get used to agreeing with him, even though we don't know all of what comes out of it. Hallelujah. So, let's see. Oh, Yom Teruah, Shalak or Arthur, the apostle, already talked about that. So I have a legend. It does not complete. Sometimes I slip. The word Shalak means the sent one. It's what's referred to as an apostle in English, and sometimes I call Arthur Shalak, just so everybody know. Yom Teruah is coming. I said sooner than you think last time. Well, tonight or tomorrow. So, all right. Remember, I always put on whenever I announce the feast days, the Ahavat, or love, because somebody's celebrating the feast days already. And somebody's celebrating them when we're not celebrating them because they've got their reasons. You know, they look at the moon differently, they're on a different calendar, whatever the case is. But they still confess Mashiach, and let's not fight about that stuff. That's reason, because we all can learn, but let's not fight about it. So real quick, my legend, because somebody told me it was a blessing. Let's go through it real quick. Yahuwah, Jehovah, Lord our Father, King James stuff. On the other side of two equal signs is the likely translation in English Bibles or the King James, Mashiach. I miss Yahusha, Yeshua, Yehoshua, Jesus. Mashiach, anointed one, Christ, Elohim, God. I miss Yahweh and Yahuwah. I miss some for the Father, but you get the idea. Ruach, or the set apart spirit, usually Kadosh, being set apart, Adon, which is a master or a Lord. And sometimes I flow between these, usually preferring the ones that are on the left side of the equation. But just so anybody out there who hasn't used to me doing that, maybe it'll help if I forget to translate once or twice where I'm coming from. So, born like this. In Mishlei, or Proverbs chapter 18, it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those loving it eat its fruit. So, what made me think about that passage is because everyone who I hear saying, this is the way we always did it, I was born like that, or any measure of this kind of a stuckness. Is that a word? No. Any measure of this lack of flexibility, they don't want to learn, they don't want to go forward, they're in that spot. Anytime I've seen that, it comes out of their mouth. And Proverbs says it real clearly, but I want to go further to say that, remember what Mashiach says, it's out of the abundance of your heart that you speak. So although the tongue is the thing that presents it, it's coming from inside of you. And so it's not enough to just say, well, I won't say that anymore. For instance, I'm always broke. You can say don't say it, but if in your heart, if in your leb, if in the inward part of you, your perception of things is that, then all you're doing is muzzling yourself, but you're still saying I'm always broke. If there was a way to communicate with you without this, I'll say, so suppose you use sign language. Something like that, right? So does that mean, okay, so according to Proverbs, it's in the power of the tongue, but you're saying it was sign language, so I guess you're good. No, you're not good, because it's coming from within you. And this is the place. So as much as we want to honor the commandments as an external manifestation of our devotion to the Mighty One of Israel, you want them to come from within. You want to change from within. You don't want some robotic kind of move going on. You want to do it. I mean, you ever had to clean that up? He's like, man, I don't want to clean that up. How good a job will you do? Well, I can still do a good job, but I hate it. So all the time you hating it, you're sending stress hormones through your body. But you're doing it. That's not the kind of life that the commandments were meant to bring. All right, I usually like to do some nuggets, so I got a real interesting one. Anybody ever heard the word brouhaha? Great excitement or clamor, right? Okay, I wasn't even looking for this. That's why I put it up there, because I stumbled into this one, trying to find something else. And what it said is that there's a great brouhaha about this word brouhaha and its origin. And I was like, wow, that caught my interest, so I went and read it. And some people think that the word brouhaha is a morph of Baruch haba, which is what it says in Psalm 118. That says, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahuwah. Well, that's Baruch Hababa. And what they think is that over time, when people were out of the land and didn't practice Hebrew as much, that it's morphed a little bit and morphed a little bit and became this word bruhaha. And I thought, boy, that's really interesting. Because if you think about it, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be great excitement and clamor. And I thought, there's some kind of, so that's just a little one. But the next one I think is really important. Free money. The free money story. Brother said, hey, I'm down with that. Free money. So I was reading a book, and in the book, it's a secular book. And in the book, the guy is talking about how he was downtown in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, which is, one of the ritzy places in Chicago. The Magnificent Mile, they call it. And there was a guy in the sidewalk, and he had a sign over his chest on the front and on the back that said, free money. And he was telling everybody, free money, free money, free money. He had dollar bills in his hands, right? And he's just standing there proclaiming free money, free money. And guess what? No one would take it. And so he walks up to this guy who is walking past him, and he says, free money. And he tries to hand it to him, and the guy's like, no, like this. And I thought, wow, that'll preach. Because the truth of the matter is that the Father is trying to hand us something that we're not willing to take. Now, what those people in the natural with this money thing, they probably thought it was a trick. They probably thought he's going to pull a fast one on us, something, I'm going to be embarrassed. But if you think about it, you can translate all of that into the Spirit and see why sometimes it's difficult to believe that the Father is actually for you and that he's actually willing to bless you with all those things that you need. Because we think of him like that guy with the free money sign, and we don't trust that he's genuine and that he means nothing but good for us. Hallelujah. So while I'm on the free deal, the next free was freedom. And I think freedom is a misnomer. And here's why. So free, we all know what it means, and I've got a definition in a minute. But the word dome, does that strike anybody as remember that one? Dome, like in dominion, like in domicile, like in dominate. It's the same root word. And so we're wanting to be free. Who doesn't want to be free? Nobody's raising their hands. I don't even have to wait. You don't want to be free? Oh, that sister, she might have it already. She might be prophetic. Hallelujah. But most of us want to be free. But the truth of the matter is, I put down here, whose dome? In other words, that second part of the word, freedom. Whose dome? Whose dome do you want to be free from? Whose dominion do you want to escape? You don't want people telling you what to do. You don't want Yahuwah telling you what to do. There's only one somebody, well, maybe a couple bodies left. The devil or you telling you what to do. You're going to obey somebody. There's no such thing as the way that we usually think of as freedom. What would you do? So every day, I drive this way instead of that way because I did it yesterday because I want to be free of all of my habits and the things that I don't have to go that way. I can drive into the parking lot backwards because I'm just doing it my way. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I need you to understand that freedom is an illusion. The issue is really, who do I bind myself to? The issue is, who will I obey? Who is trustworthy enough that I will bow myself to them, hook myself to them, yoke is what Mashiach said, myself to them, and learn of them. So, I've got the passage of Devarim of Deuteronomy 6:17 up. It says, diligently guard the commands of Yahuwah Elohim and his witnesses and his laws, which he has commanded you. And I asked the question, who was this spoken to? And we all know it was to Israel. There's two things I want to say here. One is, it was spoken to Israel, one person, community-wise, really both, right? And so the next part is, does that mean that you don't have to do it, whoever you are out there? Because some people say, that's what he told Israel. They don't usually say it like that. They usually say that's what he told the Jews. I guess only the tribe of Yehuda. I don't know. But that's a whole nother lesson. So who was he speaking to? He was speaking to all of Israel. And when you look at Deuteronomy 28 and the blessings and curses of Leviticus, I want to say 19, then you need to realize that while I can do things to govern myself and my house, that the Father always was speaking to community. He was speaking to the bigger deal. Because, it's not that he just wanted one person to be saved. Arthur said it earlier. It's his desire that everyone be saved. But if I do good and somebody in my house does bad, does my doing good keep the police from my door? No. We all have to be diligent to keep the commands. That means the little ones and the big ones. How they find out, we'll get there. All right, so the gold standard is he who guards the command guards his life. He who despises his ways dies. This didn't go away either. In fact, Revelation 14, following Mashiach and the commands of Elohim, that this has never gone away. Following his Messiah is a command I put on the slide, but so how are we born? Let's get down to it. In psychology, they've got these concepts of nurture versus nature. Anybody heard of that stuff? Nurture versus nature. The whole idea, if you don't remember that from college or never heard it, the whole idea was that you're physically got a part, and then you're influenced down the line. And while there may be some truth to that, does it completely agree with Elohim? No. And the reason is because if I go down the nature path, actually we need to keep moving because you'll see some of this. How were we born? Most with a solid frame. In other words, most people got what they needed to make it through life. Some of us, were born with challenges. It's a matter of fact. But we're designated to worship him, yet we're somehow prone to idolatry. And what does that mean? That means that we decide to put something else in the place of worship other than him. Whether that be us or whether that be the people around us, whether it be our parents, we're like prone to it somehow. And I think the if I call it that, the fall played a part in that because, all of a sudden, their eyes were open. And it seems like ever since then, people have been walking by sight instead of by faith. and so we got this tendency towards idolatry. And if you've got a tendency, the question is, how do I deal with that? And there's a way. If you've got a tendency to do something, you've got to, on purpose, counter it. And that's not always easy, but we'll see some of that later as well. So encouraged in what? It matters what we're encouraged in. So this is the sort of nurture perspective in the Torah or just in all kinds of clamor. So I'm going to read from Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 6, 1 through 10, something we all probably are familiar with, but I want to read it out loud this morning. If you have a Bible and you want to turn to me, then hallelujah. If you just want to listen, that's all good too. But I'm going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 10. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, I'm reading out of the Scriptures version. He spoke to Moshe saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when a man or woman, oh, that's not work. That's Bamidbar, sorry. Help me out. That's the wrong chapter. Y'all were wondering where I was, weren't you? All right, let's try it again. And this is the command, the laws and right rulings which Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess. That word teach, you don't need teaching if you already know. So in verse 2, that you fear Yahuwah your Elohim, to guard, shomer, watch over all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days shall be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, the famous phrase as the Shema, and you shall hear, O Israel, and shall guard to do that it may be well with you, and that you increase greatly as Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers has spoken to you in the land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall press them down into your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Amen. So imagine really doing that. Imagine sort of meditating on that in a way, and this is why certain people read it every day, and they say it before they start the services, et cetera, because there's some power in what was just said. It's worthy of meditation, because it's saying that basically to be sold out for real to the Most High. See, if I meditate on his laws and his commandments, his statutes, his judgments, all the precepts, if I press them down into my children, what I notice is that when I do that, and my children say to me, well, doesn't the word say such and such? I don't know if anybody ever had that happen to them. They ask me. I'm like, well, hold, you checking me? Hallelujah, that's awesome. Because I've either got to righteously make sense out of it, or I got to repent, or I got to lie. The last one is not an option. So now I'm building in a safety mechanism inside my camp, because I'm teaching them what it says, and now they're going to check me, and I'm going to check them, and my wife's going to check me, and I'm going to check her, and then I come here, and you all going to check me, and I'm going to check you all, and look at what's happening now. So again, it's never about an individual, it's always about community. But what if I go the other way around? What if I say, but I wasn't born keeping the commandments. I wasn't born keeping no Shabbat. My people never kept Shabbat. I was born, getting a little ahead of myself. So even though this beautiful set of passages in Deuteronomy is there, we see in, I'm going to quote something from an apocryphal book, Ecclesiasticus. Please don't be offended. But every man from his youth is given to evil. Neither could they make to themselves fleshy hearts for stoning. So this is the how we were born. Because you got to understand that even if you have a little propensity toward righteousness, in other words, some people were born and they just seem to love the Father. You know, Esau and Jacob, it seemed like Jacob was kind of leaning toward the things of righteousness, even though his name was trickster, even though he seemed to prefer that kind of angle. And Esau was a man of the world, the field, it says. He was a natural guy. He liked doing that kind of stuff. He wanted to marry Canaanite women and et cetera, right? He didn't have that same bent, if I could put it that way. But a bent is not an excuse. I just need to get that out there. So every man from his youth is given the evil. In other words, there's something about us in this age that bends us a little towards what the scriptures call an evil. It's almost like you bought a new shirt and it's got a spot in it. That happened to me. You don't like that, do you? I was thinking, well, I can get a discount. Maybe I can get it out. That's that negotiator in me. Oh, pray for me. You're right to a point, but you're right. So we're all come out and we're set up, if I can see that, when we're born, these are some of the things that we are. We're needy because we can't take care of ourselves, right? And I asked the question, why is it so hard to ask for help now? We come out, we don't know much about how things work. We're ignorant is what that's called. And how do we become know-it-alls now? We were self-centered then, and that's why we have this difficulty to give, especially of ourselves. Because most of the time, giving is about quid pro quo or something like that. I give, you give, scratching of backs, and that's not the same as really giving. If I'm giving, Mashiach says, invite people to your house to eat. They can't pay you back. They're not going to call you and say, well, next Shabbat you can come out my house. Does that mean that we shouldn't do that with each other? No. But it means that he was pointing at the essence of not being self-centered, of spreading it out. I think the world even got a name for it. Pass it on or something like this. Y'all heard that. Pay it forward. All right, thank you. I was out in Uptown this weekend. I was telling my wife some of the stuff that I saw, and she says, you don't get out much. And see, that's the evidence. Some of the stuff going on out there is like, oh my goodness. Wow. All right, so manipulative. So children, they come out like that. And we're still wanting our way, defenseless. In other words, when you're a little baby, you can't protect yourself. Then who was and is our defense now is what I say. In other words, why do we feel like we have to protect ourselves now? Now, there's a balance here in everything I'm saying, so don't go like off the deep end. Because somebody's like, well, if somebody's coming my way and they're, threatening me, then, I should just say, hit me some more, beat me down, take my money, take my teeth, That's not what I'm saying. You could have ran, maybe. Joke, sorry. So we come out lacking wisdom. And the Father says clearly through James, he says, if we're lacking wisdom, to ask and he'll give it to us. But we find ourselves thinking that we're dependent upon us and our meagerly means to do the things that have to happen. And this is how we were born, and this is how we kind of learn. I think about when I was a youngster, and anybody ever watch cowboy movies? I know it tells my age, right? Because they don't make them as often nowadays, right? But cowboys and Indian movies or whatever Indian was to them. These things, you watch them when you're young, and they show these robust characters who take care of business, fast with the 6-gun, right? Uzis weren't invented yet, so they fast with the 6-gun, and they do this to a mountain lion, they do that to a snake, and I just got to tell you that some of that stuff probably influences us. And one of the reasons maybe I had to struggle against the flavor of independence that I had become normally accustomed to was because I watched that stuff and I had my eyes like this watching it. I was like, oh, he gonna get him. You know, Billy the Kid. You know, we had cap guns that we put on our hips and stuff like that. Now that's not politically correct anymore because guns are evil, right? No. People using them are evil. No, okay, my point is that we had cap guns back in those days, right? And we, play with each other, and we had BB guns. And I remember getting shot in the head with a BB gun at close range, and it kind of dented my head a little bit. No, that's not what happened to me, for all you all who are thinking. But my point is that all of these things have an influence over us, and the whole world is speaking to you all the time, trying to do that. If I use a psychological model, trying to do that nurturing to teach you and to mold you and to make you into what they want you to be, even though you don't know what their end is. Oftentimes we agree with it. And remember, that's exactly what I said we have to do with Yahuwah. Even though we don't know the end of it, we need to agree with him. Because that's the nature of faith, and that's the nature of training. You cannot be trained without sort of trusting your trainer. Amen? No, so it's subtle because sometimes you don't realize that's what you're doing, but that's exactly what you're doing because it doesn't work any other way. This is why we have to, check our teachers out and see who's influencing us, So let's move on. So I identified a few things you already know. Children lie. Children steal. Babies manipulate. And they do it all without training. How does that work? What's going on? So remember, this message is I was born that way, right? So okay, they were born that way. But which one of us would say to our children, you stay a liar, you stay a manipulator, you stay whatever the case is, right? None of us. Why would we expect Elohim to do that? Why would we expect him to not only take us like we are, but leave us like we are? What Shaul said it in Corinthians, he says, something about being a new creature and old things pass away and all things become new and etc. Now, just in case you don't like Shaul or Paul and you think he might have made it up, let's rewind back to coming out of Egypt. The Israelites had been slaves for a long time. Indentured service slaves, whatever you want to call it. And when they came out, the Most High was calling them to be something else. And that was the struggle they were having. And I really appreciate that because I remember when I used to read passages in the scripture and doing stuff like we had leeks and onions when we were in Egypt, and now, we're out here in the desert to die. And I'm thinking, are they stupid? Right? That's the way I looked at it. But after walking this walk out for a long time now, for a season, I shouldn't say a long time. I don't know what the long time is. I realized that they might not be much different than me. They might not be much different than you all. It's not, if you don't intend to embrace change, it's very difficult for you to be changed. And I can say that the other way around. If you do embrace change or the idea of change, then it's easier for you to get there. But if you just are stuck, if you this is how it's going to be, if you want leeks and onions when you're going to a land flowing with milk and honey, you may never get there. Isn't that exactly what happened? Yeah. So you can call all of these tendencies, you can naturally justify them and say, this is a part of some survival programming, because you have to. The baby cries out, and the mama comes and feeds him, and they figure out that when I cry, she's coming to feed, and so they want to get fed, so they work it. They work it because people don't know when to stop. You ever notice that? There's some good things people do, but they don't know when to stop. It's like, well, yeah, that was a good idea, but it's enough already. Children especially, I got one, I sing the song I learned, they sing it, and it's like, oh, that was nice, and then they want to keep singing it, right? And they want to keep singing it. It's like, okay, enough already. I've heard it 15 times, but they want to keep going, watch this movie. Oh, we just don't know when to stop sometimes. So whether it's the survival programming from the Most High or not, it needs to be, how do you put it, trained. It needs to be disciplined. So let's keep going. Do we grow out of any of this stuff that we're born into? Now, lying and stealing fall in the category of sin. And I've never really noticed people grow out of sin. What I've noticed is that it morphs a little bit. They learn how to cover it and control it to some extent, but they don't grow. You don't really grow out of sin. What you grow out of is stuff like, I had, some people have, asthma or something, and then I don't have it no more. I was allergic to dust, and now I'm not anymore. That stuff you go past. But sin, you don't seem to just grow out of it. Somebody has to rebuke you. Somebody has to correct you. Somebody has to say to you, that's not the way you get a long life. And then you have to hear them. Are we bound to this nature thing? The answer, of course, is no, absolutely not. We were born this way, or did we learn it? And now that's the tricky one, because the nature of a person is that things merge together, and you can't find that line between what I was born and what I learned how to do. I don't know if I ever told anybody this, but I didn't grow up. My father wasn't in my home when I grew up. No tears or anything like that. But I grew up in a home where my father wasn't there, and I didn't know him. And the strange thing was, I didn't even know I missed. I didn't even think about it. It didn't seem to be an issue for me, because I never knew anything about having a father there. It wasn't like he was there and he left. He was never there. And I was about 12. One summer, my brother went to visit our relatives, and I didn't want to go. And so I stayed at home, and my mom said to me, I'm going to take you somewhere. And what she took me to was to meet my father. I went to he owned a gas station. I went to his gas station. I worked there all summer. I got to meet him. So up until now, I haven't known him. It turns out that my father was a tinkerer. It turns out that my father was an electronics technician. By 12, I had already installed extension phones in the house. I had already rewired the house for this, fixed lamps, etc., broke tens of watches trying to put them back together, and my mom said she wouldn't buy me any more. And so why am I telling this story? I'm telling it because that doesn't seem like a coincidence. It seems like something from him was operating in me. The natural part. Now, I know we've talked about the generational curses, and I'm not trying to open up that door right now. There may be another time. But the truth of the matter is that physiologically, a person is made from two parts, their father and their mother. And if we expect none of that to influence how their natural makeup is, then we're kidding ourselves. So we're all sort of products of that and products of what goes on around us. And then those of us who are here and are born again, we've got some even greater influence. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So I asked the question, can there be any real or lasting change? I bet you all have wondered the same things with things you struggle with. Can this ever get fixed? Can I stop doing this, or can that stop happening? Or maybe more like, can they stop doing this? Can you stop them from doing that? You need deliverance, boy, because, right? But the truth is that, that old thing, if you point your finger like this, you got 3 more pointing back at you. So we need to judge not that we be not judged, because with the same judgment we mete out is what we get judged with as well. That's not an admonition against judgment. It's just saying, don't dish out what you can't take. Don't be a hypocrite. So you're going to call somebody else and tell them, hey, the Sabbath is starting, what you still doing at work? And then, you say, and they say, what you doing? I said, man, I'm eating a pork chop sandwich. That's not right judgment. If you can't handle it, don't dish it out. All right. So there's some easy things, and then there's some not so easy paths. So let's talk about this easy path. The one that's slippery, the one that people tend to get on. They don't even have to try. It's like, well, I'm free. I could do anything I want to do. I can do anything I want to do. People say that, but I don't see that many people consciously and on purpose go down the up ramp onto the highway at high speed. I don't see them do that. Well, you mean nobody wants to do that? See, the modern media and the voices of the world are telling us that everything is acceptable. But then, is it acceptable? Because if I did that and didn't kill my fool self and a bunch of other people, what would happen? I'd get arrested. Because there's got to be some kind of order. But people want to be free. Remember from the beginning, free. I want to be free. I don't want to be under anybody's rule or dominion. I want to just do what I want. I remember those stickers that used to say, fear not. Y'all remember those? Then the Christians made one, fear God. And I like that one better, though it ain't perfect yet. But I like that one better. So people want to be free. In Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 5, there's a statement that's being made. It says, therefore, as a tongue of fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the chaff, their root is in rottenness, and their blossom goes up like dust, because they have rejected the Torah of Yahuwah of hosts and despised the word of the set-apart one of Israel. And I guess this is my setup, y'all. That every one of those things that we need to change, our not being this person is our best help. But if you want to do your own thing, I don't care what it is. We're going to talk about some of them. And I know that a message like this, I was born like this. Everybody's thinking homosexuals. All right, I've said it. Y'all been waiting for me to say it. Sister say, I wasn't thinking about that. Hallelujah. But a great majority of people probably were. Hey, the truth is that they're in here. They're in here. We'll get there. So I said we were prone to idolatry, and this is this the reason why there are black pride parades? Is this why criminals seem to boast in what they do? Is this why men, when they, do things that are unseemly with women, that they tell each other about it? Man, I did this and I did that. I don't know if women do that, because I've never been in a women's locker room. But men, they're boasting about stuff that's nobody's business, even if it was right. You don't seem like you would want to do that, but people do. They got to boast. They got to put it out there, and that's, of course, an element of pride. I I know a lot of criminals have been caught because they just had to tell somebody, not because they got caught, but they had to tell somebody they did it. And I'm not talking about confession. It's like, man, you remember that robbery over on Fifth Street? Oh, that was me and my boys, man. And then that person, whether they go report them or they tell somebody else, did you know Junebug did that robbery over on Fifth Street, man? Man. And so then loose lips sink ships. It's just a matter of fact. If he had kept his mouth shut, waited a few years, he could have kept the money. After the seventh year, be careful, y'all, because after the seventh year, he could have said it. Now, check your statutes of limitations in your municipality. But the truth is that there's a statute of limitations on most crimes, not on murder. But he could have wrote a blog about it, and they couldn't have done anything. I don't know about anything, but you get my point. But people boast because they can't help themselves. They got to tell somebody about it. So this proneness to idolatry, this lifting up of the self, this self-centeredness, this pride, basically is at the root of every sin. If somehow we could squelch that, man, it would be a lot better deal. That's why the Most High spoke to Arthur and told him about this, not knowing himself, owing himself anything. Because if you could get out of you really got a good deal coming. All right. So here comes the hard part. So I looked up this word, pervert. Pervert. Let that one sink in. It's an English word if you haven't heard it. And the word has a meaning. Now, I didn't think I was country or anything, but I made the mistake of trying to look up prevert instead of pervert. And turns out prevert is a word, too. But do you know what it means? Let me try to explain what the definition said. It said prevert is to get in front of the pervert. In other words, so let's see if the pervert, I'm gonna try to break it down here. I know it's not the scripture, but I'm gonna try. If the pervert had meant to like put a bag of poo in a paper bag and light it on fire and put it in front of your house, then y'all know that one? No, okay. All right. When I was a kid, right? All right, let's go there. People, not Ephraim, people would take some poo and put it in a paper bag and put some lighter fluid on it and light it in front of your house, in front of your door, and ring your bell and run. And you come out and you see this fire on the front of your house, and you go to stomping it, and guess what? Right? I'm surprised y'all never heard that. Oh, man. All right. Some of y'all with me. All right. So that would be a perverted thing to do. But the prevert, watch this, the prevert would give him the bag and point him to the poo. So he actually assists or gets in front of, gives power or helps the pervert out. Yeah, thank you, brother. Facilitate. So think about the laws in the United States of America. And many of the laws that have been passed lately have been preverted because they give room for perversion. So I'm thinking, okay, I thought it was just one word, prevert, but it turns out there were two. We're going to talk about pervert right now. It's a verb. In the English dictionary, it says to cause to turn away from what is right, proper, or good, to corrupt. Now, in order to have a definition like this, there's got to be a standard for what's good, what's right, what's proper. Most of y'all heard me say I have an engineering background, and so, when an engineer builds something, he builds it for a purpose. You don't build a bridge so that people could do anything other than cross over the river. You might make it beautiful too, don't get me wrong. But its function is the primary motivation. You don't see this river and say, it would really be pretty there if it was a bridge. You say, well, we have to go around and we have to get on ferries. We have to get in a boat. And if I build this bridge, then it'll facilitate, I'm using your word again, brother, getting over to the other side. That's the primary function that motivates you. But if you don't have any idea of what a thing was made for, then how can you not, let me get it right, pervert it? See, and so men and women were made for certain functions. Pieces and parcels and segments of our anatomy were made for certain reasons, and their reasons are obvious. It's not like you need to pray 5 hours to figure out some of this. But there have always been perversions. Did I get it right? Perversions. So the next definition says to bring to a bad or worse condition, to debase. I was looking at these definitions and I realized afresh the beauty of language. And what I mean by that is that, there's a place and a way to use language that's pure, and it doesn't have an oomph on it. Follow me. So the truth is that people are sort of always changing stuff. Sorry about that. Something in my eye. People are always changing stuff. I just talked about a bridge, but a road. The road wasn't there. If you're ever in an airplane and you look down over what you're flying over and you see the areas that are forested and the lakes and the rivers, and you're like, man, that looks beautiful. And then when you get toward the city, you see these gray patches. And one day I was in a flight and I was like, man, that looks like eczema on the land. It's like a scar. And people want to dwell together. They want to come near water, and so they grow. But remember what I said earlier, they tend to go too far with almost everything they do. But some way you can see this as a bit of perversion. We pervert nature because we make it do what we want it to do. They changed the course of the Illinois River in Chicago. It was this way, but they changed it. Now it goes that way. They dug and they dug and they dug and they dug till the water had to fall the other direction and cause it to go in a different direction in order to solve their pollution problem they were having in the early 1900s or late 1800s or whatever. So we change stuff all the time, and we ought to be careful with that because mankind is short-sighted. Let's just put it that way. But if I build a road over a path that I just walked over normally, not saying it's acceptable perversion, but I'm saying at least it makes a little more sense. But to just mow something down and change its course, that's a little bit harder. And there's some gray areas in here. But today I want to talk about some clear areas, and the gray areas we'll have to sort out another time. The last definition from the dictionary for pervert is to put to a wrong or improper use, to misuse. So that would mean, any sort of misappropriation of a thing would be a perversion. Synonyms at corrupt. All right. So in Hebrew, there were three words that were mentioned: selaf, a primitive root, probably to wrench, that is, figuratively to subvert, overthrow, or pervert. Then there's nata, a little longer definition, but ultimately it says to cause to yield. In other words, something was for this, but you made it for that. Same kind of idea. Excuse me. And this last one, avat, is the one I want to focus on, because it says to rest, to bow oneself, to make crooked, falsifying, overthrow, deal perversely, pervert, subvert, turn upside down. In other words, you've decided that you clearly can see what the deal is, what it was meant for, what it was all about, but you just going to turn it. What makes a person do that? It's like, you know this is for that. Why would you do that with it? Usually the answer to that is stemmed in a flavor of pride again. It's like, well, you know this is what that's for. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to, is the end result of it. So, did I read that already? I think I did. No, I didn't. In Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 5, it says in verse 20, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes. Now, we all have to struggle with this one. I have to struggle with it sometimes. And clever in their own sight. Woe to the mighty who to drink wine, and brave men to mix strong drink, who declare right the wrong for a bribe. In other words, because I'm going to get something out of it. And the righteousness of the righteous, they turn aside from him. So when I read this passage, I'm like impressed with the state of the world, with the state of this country that we're in. Because clearly there are lots of things that have been declared as good, and they're clearly not. And so let's see if I can get my words right. So we prevert by making laws that enable every flavor of perversion. When you think about the homosexuality movement, that's one thing. But to think about this, they give companies tax breaks. They give them tax breaks, and they make us pay more taxes. And, if I remember reading, and if I don't have this exactly right, well, there's a big company. I won't say the name, that way I won't have anybody send me a letter. Who made billions and billions and billions of dollars, and you know what their tax bill was? Zero. How do you do that? You do that because the laws that are in place, they're perverted. They're not. If you say the tax collection is in order to build the infrastructure of the country and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then you tell the ones who are making billions, but you don't have to pay any. We'll make so look at any structure in a big corporation. You got the CEO, CFO, CIO, CTO, all these old guys, and do a ratio comparison. In other words, divide the average person's salary into their salary. We're talking not 5 times, not 10 times, sometimes 100 times. Something's wrong with that picture. And so perversion's not isolated to sexual identity. Perversions abound. It's all over the place. And we have to be very careful that we don't get caught up in our own version of it, because remember, the key to this is that it usually has a bribe. It has some perceived benefit to me. I said this already, so we're going to go next slide. So how were we born again? It's time to talk about some of the remedies. How were we born again? So we were born one way, but we were born again by the Spirit of Elohim. And there's no shadow in his turning. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing about that that's impure or perverted. There's no way to say, well, he just keeps, making me give. He just keeps, pouring me out to bless people. Or, he causes me to see how my flesh needs to be put into submission. Some of y'all been in this walk for years and years and years. And if it's been a good walk, I don't mean a pleasant one by a day-to-day basis. If it's been a good walk, you're not like you were when you started it. And so that work comes from Haruach. That work comes from the Spirit of Elohim that's been imparted into you. And whether we can articulate the mechanisms for all the pieces, because, like I said, that engineer brain, I want it. But whether we can say all of that accurately, and I know I can't, the effect you can clearly see in that we change. So how were we born again? I say with a heart to rightly worship and bow to him. That's not even interested in free. In Deuteronomy 15, I almost got an earring. I almost did. I ain't got nothing against earrings. People got them. It's no big deal. But I almost got an earring. And let me tell you why. Because in Deuteronomy 15, it says that if you have a Hebrew servant, King James says slave, I think. But the word is abud, and it means a servant. It means somebody who works for you, who can ultimately be apart from you. He might be indentured because he owes you money or whatever, but he's not a slave like that. But he says if you have one and he don't want to leave when his time is up, he says, no, I like your house. I want to hang out with you. I don't want to go out there. It says to take him and put his ear to the door and take a awl and press it through his ear and put an earring on him. And he can never leave your house. And I thought, that's how I feel about Yahuwah. I need to get an earring just to show, because sometimes I'm into showing. Just to show that I'm a servant, I'm a slave. Paul said I'm a bond servant, right? I'm doesn't mean I'm perfected yet. It just means that, oh yeah, I'm way committed. This hurt. I did it because I'm committed, right? So we get this heart from the Father. He gives it to us so that we can rightly worship him. And the worship is about bowing down. It's about saying you're high and we're low. It's about saying your will and not my will. But it would be foolish for me to say to you all, well, there's no struggle in that. You just say it and do it. Name it and claim it. Boom, boom, boom. Because there is an enemy. There's stuff going on. That enemy is sometimes us. And the fact that we were born a certain way, the fact that we were set up, so to speak, the fact that we can't see past our circumstances and situations, and we think, well, it's going to always be like this. The fact that sometimes we see people live and die and they don't change. And we think, what hope do I have? Remember the free money? See how it works? Now the Father is saying, I got all of this for you. And we're not even willing to chase after him to get it because we just convinced ourselves, this is how I am. This is my lot. I see this tension in my life between prospering according to his will, and I mean not just money. I mean, in the Spirit, learning to walk in the Spirit and discern properly better and better and better, and to be able to execute that authority that he's given us better and better and better, and all that. And at the same time, if you remember what I said earlier, not knowing all of what his plan is. See, a long time ago, so my wife and I, we went to Chicago a month or so ago, 2 months ago, whatever. And we went out to the lake and we were hanging out. And I told her the story. I says, this place right here, this is where I got my call. See, one day I was, I told you all before, that I was a cokehead or whoremonger or whatever you want to think of. If you want the list, catch me later. I'll tell you all about it. And I was delivered. And I was like walking in a freedom I had never known from those things. And I define freedom from that stuff. And I was sitting out on the lakefront, and I had a little paper green Bible. I was just reading it, and I was going to read it. And I remember saying to the Father in the language that I knew then, I said, Lord, I don't know why you blessed me so to be free from all of that stuff. And I said to him, I says, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? Because you've done all this for me. And it's almost like, I don't know if I was thinking I wasn't pulling my weight. I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to somehow bless him. And he literally spoke to me, you all. And he told me all of these things about the ministry that he had called me to and how he was going to use me to do this, that, and the other. And I was like, no. I said, because, I knew I was a dopehead. I knew I was a thief. I knew I said I'll get a list later, but here it is. I knew had been all those things. And I was like, how could that be? I've never been to seminary school or any such thing. And how could that's not possible? And he said to me, he says, I will use your life as your seminary school. So I'm having this conversation with the living Elohim. And I'm starting to weep, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. I know I'm hearing him. I know I'm talking. I was like, this is crazy. And I'm like, that's impossible, Father. How could you do that? And the Spirit spoke to me again and said, read Exodus chapter, I think it's 4 or 3. I don't remember the exact one. And just to show you how green I was, I didn't know where Exodus was in the Bible. I went to the table of contents. The second book in the Bible, I didn't know where it was. This is how early in my walk he's hitting me with this. And so I went to the table of contents. I found Exodus. I went to there and I read what it said. And I burst out in tears because it was when Moses was called and he says, I can't do this. And I says, okay, Father. I got no clue how you're going to work that out. Remember what I said earlier? We've got to agree with him, even though we don't see the end of it. We don't know how that's going to happen and how it's going to look when it happens. Because here we are, can I use that? Umpteen years later, and I'm standing before his people, delivering his word, teaching with some measure of confidence that he could use me to do it. So I want to encourage you that this whole idea of this is how we did it, this is how we always have been, this is how I was born, is in some ways a flat out excuse and a lie. None of us are bound to that stuff in Messiah. So, how are we born again? I said, what an unbreakable frame. Earlier I said we would, I don't know what I said, but something like a adequate thing. But this is an unbreakable frame. In other words, there's not anything that's been created that can crush the spirit of Elohim in you, except that you hinder it, except that you quench it, except for that you disagree with it. And so it comes down to us. I pray, Father, you would trouble the water in all of our hearts. Hallelujah. That we begin, hallelujah, to witness your power and authority in our life like never before. So to rightly worship and to be filled with and led by his spirit, to renew our fleshy mind, and that's where the discipline comes in at. Because we see a thing, even then I saw what I saw, and I'm like, okay, I heard what you said, I believe you, but I'm going to have to hide some of this in my heart because I can't just go out preaching yet because I don't even know where Exodus is at. Well, what are you talking about, brother? Well, the Father told me I'm going to be a preacher man. That's not what he said, right? But he told me that, and so now I just get at it. That's not the path either. So I say renewing your fleshy mind, working on that discipline, and the subtopic bullet here is that a homosexual is a Torah breaker. So let that sink in for a minute, because I don't let the Ruach sort of twirl that around in our beings. A homosexual was a Torah breaker. What's the definition of a homosexual? Anybody got any idea? I know I don't have a mic, but I just want to know if anybody got an idea. Oh. That's the one I was looking for. So, does that include masturbation? So every one of us who have ever done that have been guilty of a homosexual act. Every last one of us who's ever done that. Now, some of y'all never did. I know y'all don't want to go there. This is Shabbat. But here's the deal. It's so easy to look out there and say, what about them? But your own definition just said, what about me? What about you? So that whole judging that you judge not thing just came home to roost. So I want to give us an opportunity to be so real with each other and with ourselves, and then with the Most High, most importantly, that we give room to open up ourselves that He can deal with us, because religion time is over. We can play house in this house just like we might have played house in the first day house. We could play house all our lives if we want to, dabbling a little bit at truth. Putting on this mask, in Greek that word for hypocrisy is a mask wearer, like an actor in a play. I mean, you think, what's the actor people like? Hey, I was talking about cowboy movies. Clint Eastwood, you think he really a cowboy? I don't know. But he's not. He's acting. But we must not be actors. We must be beers. If you remember my last message, the Father gave a nugget I don't think I'll ever forget. That being was our state. We need to be. We need to I am in the sense that He am. It's hard to say those words because of the conjugation of that verb. But you get my point. So again, I'm going to read that last bullet, and I'm going to read it because I'm supposed to go to Romans. Y'all thought you were going to get away with Romans, not seeing any Romans today, didn't you? It's not going to happen. Homosexual is a Torah breaker. Let's read Romans 1, 18 through 22, and then we're going to bounce a little bit through there because 18, it says, Romans 1 and 18, for the wrath of Elohim is revealed from heaven against all wickedness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known of Elohim is manifest among them, for Elohim has manifested it to them. In other words, I'll just read it. For since the creation of the world, His invisible qualities have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, both His everlasting power and mightiness, for them to be without excuse. Verse 21, because although they knew Elohim, they did not esteem Him as Elohim, And that's the trick right there. See, because even though we've been born again, even though we're walking in the Torah, you've got to lift him up as Elohim all the time. In the Psalms, David says this thing and always bless me. He says, come and magnify Yahuwah with me. It's like lift him up. And you think, well, yeah, that means get your praise on. Yeah, and that's fine. But the thing is that is he really the head of our life? Because I can praise him for 20 minutes and go back to my junk. That's not the path he really wanted. Verse number 21, I didn't finish it. Because although they knew Elohim, they did not esteem him as Elohim, nor give thanks, but became vain in their reasoning, and their undiscerning heart was darkened. Claiming to be wise, became as fools, and changed the esteem of incorruptible Elohim in the likeness of an image of corruptible man, of birds, and four-footed beasts, and of reptiles. So this is the part that we all know. These are the anti-homosexual passages, right? So hang on here. Therefore, Elohim gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to disrespect their bodies among themselves, who changed the truth of Elohim into the falsehood and worship and served what was created rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Because of this, Elohim gave them over to degrading passions. So you see the perversion coming in right now? He gave them over to degrading passions. For even their women changed, perverted, turned over natural relations for what is against nature. And likewise, the men also, having left natural relations with women, burn in their lust for one another, men with men, committing indecency and receiving back the reward which is due for their straying. And even as they did not think it worthwhile to possess the knowledge of Elohim, in other words, they didn't want to hold on to him, Elohim gave them over to a worthless mind. I think it says reprobate in the King James. To do what is improper, having been filled with all unrighteousness. But hold on. When we usually read these passages, they're usually some flavor of gay bashing, right? So in the passages we read so far, they've had their turn, and it's not good. They need to repent. But watch this, because show's not finished writing. All of that stuff about forgetting Elohim, not holding him in your mind and high up and lifted, etc., that they were guilty of, that caused them to do the things that they're doing, those same things are going to address a whole nother set of people. Now watch. And they didn't think it was, hold it. Having been filled, with all unrighteousness, whoring, wickedness, greed, evil, filled with envy, murder, fighting, deceit, evil habits, whisperers, slanderers, haters of Elohim, insolent, proud, boasters, devisers of evils, disobedient to parents, without discernment, covenant breakers, unloving, unforgiving, ruthless. Now that list was longer than homosexuality. And if I read that right, those things are because they've left off Elohim. In other words, if I remember the Most High, I'm not going to be disobedient to my parents' children. If I remember the Most High, I'm not going to steal your stuff. I don't have to go down the list again. Actually, I will a little bit later. But the point is that the effect of leaving off Elohim is not just homosexuality, it's perversion. And perversion includes much more than just men with men and women with women. And this whole world is guilty of it and complicit with it because we say and do things that promote the stuff, which makes us, if we are not perverted, that makes us preverts. Y'all heard my definition. So, I see what the Father meant when he said, I'll make your life your seminary school. Because I was on a plane one day, and I was reading my little Bible. It was my Derringer. I guess that's what I do. And this guy sits next to me, and he's like, well, what are you reading? I says, I'm reading the Bible. And he starts up a conversation with me. Long story short, it turns out this guy is saying he loves the Lord, but he's gay. I know. He's like, well, the reason that the Father rained fire and brimstone down on Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't because they were gay. This is the first time I heard this. This is many years ago. I said, really? I thought it was. He says, no, it was because they were proud. And I says, oh, okay. I was like, where did he get that from? Oh, okay. And I start to search the scriptures, and I realize kind of where he got that from. And so in Ezekiel chapter 16, this discussion the Most High is having about Yehuda, and he's saying to them, here, I'll read it. I'll read one passage. The whole chapter is really good. It'll kind of give you the right framework for this, but I'm not going to go through the whole chapter. But it says, see, this was the crookedness of your sister Sodom. She and her daughter had pride, sufficiency of bread, and unconcerned ease. And she did not help the poor and the needy. So this is where he's coming from. And I always love when people justify their aberrant behavior with the scripture. It's awesome. So I'm looking at this passage, and surely they had pride because, you don't go up the down ramp unless you got a lot of pride or high on PCP or something. You just don't do that. And so there is an element of pride there, but that doesn't take away the fact that Leviticus says that in a man laying with a man like a man is an abomination. You got it. In the kingdom, death was the answer to that. And so we go back and forth, and he tells me, well, you make some good points. He says he wants to give me his card, and then what the card say? That he's the head of the Gay Catholic Association of America, right? How if I ain't get in front of him? See, the Most High's got his way of using us if we're not afraid to open our mouth and say what we need to say. We're all of us here. We probably know the word far more than we use personally and that we put out personally. But we need to use some of that ammunition, hallelujah. We need to consider his words like bullets in the chamber. Here I go with my cowboy and Indian stuff, right? Only thing I'm trying to say is that, we really need to war against the world, whether it's impacting us directly or whether it's those that are around us. And we need to give the Father a hand up and say, send me, I'll go. I'll do it. Because I know that guy was convicted. I don't know what he did after that, but he was convicted that maybe this line of thinking that he had was not quite right. And that's the best I can do, because it's not a debate like that. Well, I won. It's just I want to bear witness to the truth. So pride is always an issue, and I mentioned that earlier. I asked the question when I look at this passage. It says, and she did not help the poor and the needy. I thought, well, if there's a charitable foundation inside the lesbian gay community, then I guess they'll be okay. I mean, if I use their logic, and I say their logic because he said his card said he was the leader of this group. So if I use their logic, then these passages say the real problem is that they had sufficiency of bread and unconcerned ease. So if they give some of their stuff to the poor and needy, then they can keep on doing these things. And then you can just jump right over Leviticus. jump right over Romans chapter 1. See that kind of perverted logic? Let us not be victim of it ourselves. Let us not see a lawyer. You know, in court, right? You go to court and you have your lawyer with you, and his intention is not necessarily to get down to the bottom of the truth. His intention is to get you off, right? And so he uses the tricks and the techniques of the law to do that. He wants to show the judge and the jury why they should let you go, why you are still innocent until presumed, however it goes. He wants to make sure you, and so he will stand up there and legally lie in order to get you acquitted. Something wrong with that picture. But they do it in the natural. The scribes, the Pharisees have done it with the word. Maybe even we've done some of it. Let us not be like that. Let the word be true and every man, including ourselves, be liars, if that's the case. So, the next slide I talk about the great deceiver. If you want to bend, pervert the truth, you've got some help. And while he's not almighty, he's mighty to help you. He can hook you up. But if you begin to ask the Father to help you to love righteousness, then you'll find something strange happens. So here's another quick Ephraim story. So I was struggling with some stuff that I knew was wrong. I'll tell it like it is. Right? I had a girlfriend back in the day, and I had just, this is in the Green Bible days after the Father told me what. And we were doing things we shouldn't be doing. I'm just leave it there. And I was like, I'm tired of doing this. I don't want to do it no more. But I kept finding myself in it. So I cried out to the Father, help me, Abba. I don't know how to solve this. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, da, 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 da. And one day I got a phone call, and it was her. She said, well, I left my umbrella at your house. Can I come by and get it? And I'm like, oh, no. She left her umbrella at the house. She's going to come over here, and, you know, one thing's going to lead to another. I'm trying not to be too explicit here. I'm like, I can't, not again. I was weak. And so I said, Father, would you please help me? I don't know how to deal with this properly. Da, 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 da. And so she rang the bell, and I was going to take the umbrella down there and give it to her. Here, gone. That was my best deal with it, right? And because the people in the building knew her, because she came by a lot, she just came. They let her in. She came in. I opened the door. There she is, right there. I'm like, oh. So now she's going to come in, right? And I tell you, man, if y'all ever seen a force field in Star Trek, the Most High put a force field there. She didn't step through the threshold. I was confused because the door was open. She'd been over there enough times. Walking in was a no-brainer. She stood outside the door, and it was like something was holding her. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Let me get your umbrella. And I reached around and got her umbrella and gave it to her, and she left. So why am I telling this story? Because I knew that what I was doing was not pleasing in his sight. And I asked him to help me, to break this thing, to get me out of it, because I just feel, whether you can say, well, you just be a man and do the right thing. Well, I couldn't. I didn't feel like I could. And in the process of him learning, teaching me to trust him, to fight my battles, to take care of the stuff that I couldn't take care of, to do the unseen, where he blessed me. And I'm telling you all because every one of us, no doubt, either will today or someday need a blessing from the Father like that. See, this great deceiver says, handle your business. You the man, it's all well. Either do it because the Father know your heart. So just keep doing it, or, just, tell her this, that, and the other, and work it out on your own. Well, you see, when you're really bought with a price, you don't really have your own anymore to work it out in. I'm not saying we don't have any responsibilities. Don't get me wrong. But you don't have to fight your own battles. You don't have to say, well, if I don't do it, it won't get done, in the sense of those things that the Father is concerned about. Sure, I had to put my own turban on this morning. So no confusion about that. But, do I think that he could put a turban on? I do, but, that all jokes aside, my point is that the Father will fight your battles. He'll deal with this great deceiver that's causing you to get trapped or feel trapped and locked in and stumbling with things that, you're stumbling in. All right, so does that mean that if sinners give to, I said that already, so that was back to the whole idea of, do I give and that somehow outweighs my actions? You've had people who go to the church, go to the assembly and say, we want to make an offering, but they're gangsters, and you're like, I'm not taking that money. I don't even need that money like that. Some people do, but righteous leadership doesn't. So is there any fix except to agree with Elohim? I talked about that already. Don't sign up for the devil's resurrection. So in our flesh, right, Show says there's no good thing. But I'm here to tell you that the enemy is willing to raise your flesh back up every day if you want. Every day. If you, do good one day and you decide, just a little bit of, he's willing to help you out. He is. If you've lived, it's not about me for a while, and it doesn't seem like it matters how long you've been in this, he's still willing to help you out. It's like, Ephraim, you wanna go down that path? I'm gonna help you out. So we don't want to sign up for his resurrection, because his resurrection, though it seemed like life, is really unto death. Flee the works of the flesh. Are you reckoning yourself dead to sin? In other words, in your accounting of thought, do you believe you're dead to sin? Earlier we talked about what's in your mouth or what's in your tongue. And I says, let's go even deeper. Let's get before the tongue. So let's get before the tongue on this one too. And consider myself. Meditate that I'm dead to sin. Caterpillars don't hang out with butterflies. Who are you hanging out with? Nothing wrong with a caterpillar or a butterfly. But if you're always with people who sin, and if you're always reading stuff about sin, and if you're always watching movies about sin, and if your life is glorifying sin while you're a secret believer, then how do you expect anything to manifest other than sin? The last question I asked is, are you born again? We're going to talk about that a lot in the Hebrew roots or messianic faith. But there is a beauty to the Spirit of Elohim coming into you and birthing you in the Spirit. And if anybody thinks that, I'm just like taking the old churchese view on it, then look at your little ones that haven't had that experience yet. And see, we're expecting them, and sometimes we even expect the world to abide by Elohim's rules. How can they when they don't know them? It's a crazy expectation on my part to think that people are going to be kind and gentle and the fruit of the Spirit operating them, and they ain't got the Spirit. I mean, I had to catch myself. Well, hold it. I'm at work. I'm wherever I'm at. I'm like, what are you thinking, Ephraim? This isn't Yisrael with all the people loving Yahushua. This is the world you're in and out of. All right, so it seems like we're all born like this or like that. And we can't rebrand sin like the lesbian, gay, bi, the LGBT. We can't rebrand it. We can't go around saying, well, I was just talking or just saying, and it really be gossip. Stop it. I need these extra pencils or whatever because we were Robin Hooding from work. In other words, they don't need it. We're taking from the rich and giving to the poor. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, and really you're stealing from work. Stop it. The just one more sip. I mean, this is just some examples. I really don't like him. This is for the younger ones especially, but grown folk fall into this too. I really don't like him, but I guess it's okay. You don't want to give in to sin and to intimate relations on the I guess it's okay. Save yourself till you're married, folk. Young people, those who aren't married, who desire it. Save yourself. I always say, well, when you marry and you look at your wife or you look at your husband across from yourself and you say, well, I really wish they had had sex with more people before they met me. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. It's like it would be nice if this package was brand new on both sides. Not just the women, but the men too. In other words, virgin is not a gender word. It's for both. No conviction over folk who've done and repented because there's no unringing that bell. But you don't have to find yourself on the slippery slope of over and over and over doing that thing. That's the encouragement to get from that. All right, how about it's the latest style, that whole covetousness thing, it's the latest style. I got to get that clothes, those music, that et cetera, et cetera. Be careful. Let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 6, and we're going to get close to winding down. 1 Corinthians chapter 6. You all been very patient with me. I appreciate it. I think I'm going to read from verse 7 or so. Yeah, I love these passages because Shaul says some things that are really powerful. He says, verse number 7 says, it's hard to start there, but we'll start there anyway. Already, then, there is failure with you that you have lawsuits among you. Why not rather be wronged? See, selfishness don't let you be wronged. Oh, I'm going to get vengeance is mine, said Ephraim. Y'all fill in the gap. But, we know this is not true. That's not what the word says. Why not rather be cheated? But you yourselves do wrong and cheat. In other words, he's calling out hypocrisy, and that to your brothers. Do you know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Elohim? I think I might have put that in here. Do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Elohim? Do not be deceived, neither those who whore. Now, Shalako, the author talked a little bit about whoredom and adultery over the last few weeks. And I'm not sure if he said this, but did you all know that in the ancient days, strangely enough, even now, sex was used as an initiation into cults? When you went to the temple of blah blah, there would be a cult prostitute that you could lay with, and her job was to become one with you because she was devoted to this thing, and now you've become one with her, and so you've been initiated because the devil understands clearly how these soul ties work. He understands better than we do. And so when we see whore or we see fornication, the word behind it, the pornea word behind there is not just, laying with somebody who's not your wife, but many times it's about cult prostitution. And I say that happened in the ancient days, but even now, if somebody don't believe what you believe, and you bind yourself to them, you got an influence that's stronger than you would ever want towards something that you shouldn't be a part of. So do not be deceived. Those who hoard, or idolaters, or adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greedy of gain, nor drunkards, nor revelers, nor swindlers shall inherit the reign of Elohim. You see, I stumbled at the greedy of gain. So I've got a business that I'm working on, and my wife will tell you that one of the challenges with my business is that it has this potential trap of making people not know when to stop gaining. And I know, well, that sounds wonderful. It's like, you mean I can have all the money in the world? Well, yeah, but it's like, do you want to get all the money in the world and lose your soul? Remember that passage, gain the world and lose your soul? And so I paused there because I'm always warring against that. I'm always trying to make sure I stay on the right side of it. And sometimes I get too far on the left side of it, and I think, all I need is just the food and the clothing, right? I don't need nothing else because I'm just a humble servant of, you know what I'm saying, right? That's one extreme. And then the other side of me, is saying, Ephraim, you can, the people you owe, you can pay them all off today, And so the balance is like, Father, you show me. Because if you tell me that the time right now is to harvest and to take everything I can because this is the moment to do that, but I can't make a statement like that without the Spirit dealing with me, you see? Because otherwise, what I am doing is left to my own devices once again, which is a recipe for disaster. So I paused at that because I got that check in my spirit just because it's my thing to stay on top of. What's your thing? Stay on top of your thing. Get delivered from your thing. Swindlers, I think it says, I'm not calling anybody out there a swindler. Drunkards, swindlers, revelers, all over the place. In other words, Shaul says, and such were some of you. So as much as I despise the activity of any flavor of sin, this message is not a bashing against the homosexual community as much as it's a bashing of the nature of perversion. And everything that falls in that category gets the same bashing to me. Somebody come up to me and says, man, we're gonna rob a bank. I'm gonna tell them that's sin just like anything else is sin. Well, Ephraim, but it says it's an abomination. Yeah, I get it. It is an abomination. I get it. But Shaul put it in the list he just had in 1 Corinthians, and then he says, and such were some of you. What that means is that there's somebody out there right now who's doing that flavor of perversion, but it's going to be one of us. There's some of us in this room that may have found themselves doing that sort of behavior, but now they're here and set apart. So let me read it. And such were some of you, but you were what? Washed. But you were set apart. But you were declared right in the name of our sovereign or master, Yahushua, and by the Spirit of our Elohim. See, some people couldn't have talked to that fellow on the plane like I did. I'm not boasting in me, but I'm encouraging us all to be able to talk to the people. Some people can't talk to, you go to prison, talk to gangsters and stuff. Steve and his wife go to prisons all the time. And some of that is that nature of their call, what they've been through in life, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes it's just that sin is sin. The remedy for sin is the remedy for sin. Don't get the ickies. It might be icky, but don't get the ickies and miss the opportunity to bless them with their opportunity to repent. It's going to be more and more of this foolishness as time goes on. And so we, the set apart ones of the Most High, we are the light. We are the salt. Hallelujah. But we got to clean us up first. All right. So we saw who else was on the list, and that list was a lot longer than sexual perversion. You ever heard this, living in a state of horror? If anybody in here still reading their horoscopes, stop. But people do it. And then they come to assembly on Shabbat, or some of them go to church on Sunday, and they give me that fortune cookie, because they got to see what the inside of the fortune cookie say, and they say, man, that said such and such and such. But we're not supposed to go to soothsayers and fortune tellers and that manner of thing. What about, and it doesn't say because they won't tell you the truth. It doesn't say that in Deuteronomy 18. It says, my paraphrase, because it's illegal. We're not supposed to. It's not like he said they're automatically going to lie to you. People say, we don't go to them because, witchcraft they're just lying. Not all the time. Sometimes they might tell you something that's true. But the thing is, did they tell you when you didn't need to know? I don't know. All I know is that it's illegal. And if I'm going to get something about things I can't see, I want them to come from Elohim. I don't need no occult practices. So haters, jealous, covetous, Sabbath breakers. I don't know why we think, some people that, okay, well, we don't have to, how'd it go? I'm talking to this Jehovah's Witness. He comes to the house, and he's telling me how, this, that, and the other, and how homosexuals are going to hell. They're going to hell. It's like, yeah, they're going to hell if they don't repent. But I'm not going to be the one to judge them. They're going to hell. And I let them talk. And I said, where do you get that from? He says, well, it's right in Leviticus. He showed me where it was, right? I'm thinking, oh, that's the law. I said, that's the Torah. He says, but that's still for today. And he goes through this long story, right? I'm thinking, oh, hold it now. I got a Jehovah's Witnesses following the law. And I said, well, what day you worship on, bro? He said, no, the Sabbath. It changed. It's just. I said, well, hold it. How is it the same Torah you just went to the run up and down? These people don't apply to you. And that's what we must never be. We must never be those people. All right, so we're without excuse. We need that childlike faith versus being childish. And you remember my list of what childish was like. We need to meditate and immerse ourselves in his laws and his commandments. We need to reject and renounce all our agreements with death. Those ones that say we're always like that, or I don't know what will happen if I don't. I keep lying about this because if I don't, then that's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen if you trust the Most High. He's likely to leave you a blessing. And you're not going to get it as long as you're bound in a lie. So we need to cry out for deliverance. And I think this is understated. We need to be begging and pleading that he would set us free. Like that story I just told about that woman back in the day. And watch him show up. Because according to Messiah, watch me now, according to Messiah, that if we ask any things according to his will, he's going to give it to us. You can stand on that, y'all. So now I've got this stuff that's happening in my life that I know is sin. Does he want me to stay in it? Yes or no? No. So now I'm crying out in agreement with him, and I'm expecting him to deal with it because I'm saying I'm trying to comply with you. And he's saying, oh, I can help you with that. I'm going to work on you. You may not come this second, But I'm going to dismantle that stuff. When they disconnect Siamese twins, they have to be careful. Because, they share this part and that part. He might have to do a little surgery on you. He might have to burn in your desire to get away from it. Because there's certain things I don't go back to, not because I just know they sin and I ain't going back to them. It's because I developed a distaste for them. It's because I remember what it was like being bound to them, and I was like, that's not happening again. So we don't know why sometimes this timing is not exactly what we want it to be, but we need to cry out for deliverance, and we need to keep believing him and being believable. What does that mean? That means that you need to sow seeds of righteousness even while you're struggling. That is so difficult for some people. But if we reap what we sow, think about it. So you plant all this wicked seed and you start harvesting it and you don't like it one bit. And so you get so upset that you sow some more unrighteous seed and you're going to still reap that and you're not going to like that one bit. So at some point, you got to start doing good. You got to start sowing some righteous seed so that when the bumper crop of evil is over, that you have some righteous fruit. Hallelujah. So don't let your issue keep you from doing right where you could do right. It's like, well, Ephraim, I got this problem, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you might, but if the Father was waiting for us to be completely perfect before he used any of us, there would be a very short line. Let's just put it like that. All right. When I was born in the natural, I didn't know how to walk. I couldn't talk. I didn't know how to clean myself, went to the bathroom. I didn't know how to read or write. I didn't know any of these things, and yet I was disciplined to learn them. We're in the kingdom. It's the same way. You gotta take the yoke on, y'all. We have to take the yoke on. So even in a fallen world, we can put on the newness of life. If the Spirit of Messiah be in us, then we're a child of Elohim. And every day you have a chance to experience what Yahushua did. In other words, he put on flesh. That's all we're doing. He mastered it when he put it on. But we got him in us, and we can do the exact same thing. And I put down and find what a privilege that is. To do what he did. I mean, to basically show the world and sin that you're not mightier than the Most High. All right, so that's the end of the message, other than my last slide, which says repentance is the turning, not the arrival. The shub is the turn. So don't get discouraged if you ain't quite there yet. Do the turning, start walking the walk, and let the Most High bless. Hallelujah.